And welcome back to the Bat Cave. Hope all is well with everybody. Last week, we marked the 20th anniversary of the death of Tweed Trang. For those of you who are not aware, Tweed Trang portrayed Trini, the original Yellow Power Ranger from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Miss Trang was killed in an automobile accident on September 3rd, 2001. So this is the 20th anniversary of her death. And this was a very sad death because she was very young at the time. She was in her late 20s. And for a lot of people, they remember her as Trini the Yellow Power Ranger. For almost 30 years, the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, or the Power Rangers brand, has been a successful television series where teenagers, typically, as many of you know, dress up in multicolored spandex costumes and fight big rubber monsters or use these colossal sized robots called Zords to win the day. There usually is a catchy theme song associated that says the words "Go Go Power Rangers." But what's very interesting about Power Rangers over the last 30 years, it really has been a successful brand that has been able to be what's referred to as Americanized. For those of you not aware, the Power Rangers is actually based on its original inception took place in Japan during the 1970s. It's referred to as the Sentai series, or sometimes the Super Sentai series, and there have been various versions of them over the years. About 31 years ago, Haim Saban had an interest in bringing the Power Rangers to America and what's called, as I said, Americanize the show. That means what he would do is his company Saban Entertainment would splice the Japanese fighting footage with American teenagers and then redub everything with American voices, American sounds, and you would have a completely original show here that would air here in the United States, specifically in 1993 when the series began. Specifically, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers premiered on August 28th, 1993 on the Fox Kids network. And it wowed fans, it wowed children, and at the same time, what took place on the show needed to exist in the toy store, almost like a symbiotic relationship, because in order for the toys to be successful, the show had to be successful, and vice versa. So there needed to be that coexistence that took place, that symbiotic coexistence, where both the brand of the show and the toy line from, at that time, Bandai, would be successful. What I really want to focus on, though, for today is to understand that while Saban was interested in splicing the Japanese footage, in essence, what he did create and his company did was create an original show here in America that told creative stories that borrowed footage from Japan. And sometimes I found that the original series, the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, seasons 1, 2, and 3, had very creative and engaging stories that were, that contained their own mythology, thanks to a variety of factors. As I said, what is now referred to as Power Rangers pretty much came to the United States in '92 and started airing on Fox Kids in 1993. And as a result of both the success of the toy line and the show, billions of dollars in toy sales, phenomenal ratings, and 30 years later, many of the original fans, which of course I was, are still loyal to the product line and the toys, and even as grown-ups and adults, and instilling our children now with those influences from that time. But as I said, the American version I found to be very compelling in terms of storytelling, footage, the dialogue. So I want to just discuss that for a little bit. As I said, The original series premiered in '93, and this is like the third time I'm saying this, but there's a reason why I'm highlighting that. The first 16 episodes of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers only featured the original 5 Power Rangers, including Jason, Zach, Kimberly, Trini, and Billy. At episode 17, we get the introduction of the 6th Ranger, the Green Ranger, Tommy Oliver. His story became a miniseries in '93 titled Green with Evil. It was a 5-part miniseries that took place over a series of a week to introduce this character. And it's very interesting, the American version of the 6th Ranger, because as I said, the Japanese footage from the Sentai series called Zoo Ranger is a little bit different in terms of the story details, but the original version of Tommy Oliver in the American version has some very interesting details to it. So just to give you a recap, as you may or may not know, the original villain of Power Rangers was Rita Repulsa. She, throughout episodes 1 through 16, is trying to find a way to defeat the Power Rangers with all her different types of monsters. Nothing's working. So all of a sudden, the story goes that at episode 17, a new teenager named Tommy Oliver comes to Angel Grove and participates in a martial arts contest where he battles Jason in a contest. It ends in a draw, and Rita sees him and is enamored with his abilities and says he would be a great Green Ranger. So she casts a spell on him to make him her evil Green Ranger. As the evil Green Ranger, Tommy enters the command center and is able to disable the Ranger's mentor, Zordon. Rita then gives him what's called the Sword of Darkness to keep him under his spell forever. At a certain point, Jason the Red Ranger is trapped in Rita's dark dimension, where he is forced to fight both Green Ranger and Goldar. And during this time, Rita also summons her friend, the evil Stinging Scorpina, to help defeat the Rangers. The ultimate battle is where Rita casts a spell on the sun to cause an eclipse that cuts off the source of Megazord's solar energy. During that fight, the Megazord is temporarily destroyed by the combined powers of Goldar, Scorpina, and Green Ranger. Rita, towards the end of the Green with Evil miniseries, Rita then gives her Green Ranger, the Dragon Zord. Eventually, Zordon is able to come back online with the help of his robotic assistant, Alpha 5. And the Rangers get their Zords back. They're able to defeat the Dragon Zord and destroy the Sword of Darkness, which maintains the spell that the Green Ranger is under until it's destroyed. Tommy then becomes a member of the Power Rangers, and that pretty much continues the first season to where he becomes the 6th member of the team. So that's pretty much that Green with Evil story in a nutshell. Now, as I said, what makes Power Rangers so unique as an individual show is that the producers took the footage from the Sentai series, introduced American actors, and then re-recorded the dialogue and the sounds and music, which ultimately resulted in a completely original show. But what made the Green with Evil storyline in the American version so compelling was based on a few things. The first thing is the American voiceovers of the villains, specifically Rita and Goldar and Scorpina. Rita is voiced by a wonderful wonderful actress named Barbara Goodson, who is just a nice person in real life. And, she had this great portrayal of this character that even 30 years later, fans are still enamored with and love. The other villain that we see a lot of in the Green with Evil storyline is the Goldar, basically her second in command, who was voiced by Kerrigan Mayhew. And his portrayal of this character was so compelling in terms of certain things that he would say throughout this period, because he's the one that basically tells Rita, give him the Sword of Darkness, but you can't just give it to Green Ranger because it has to be earned. So he'll have to have a test of strength against the Putty Patrol to prove that he's able to earn the Sword of Darkness. And then eventually we see, well, of course, the other villains coming to exist in the series. Finster, Squat, Babu. And as I said, these voiceovers are so compelling in terms of the level of detail and the effort and overall performance that gives such a great layer to it. Like, it's very interesting to watch and hear those voices in that series. One specific instance that I could just remember just off the top of my head between all these three villains takes place during episode 3, the rescue of the Green with Evil miniseries, where Rita, Goldar, Squat, Babu, and Scorpina are debating who should lead the attack during the final battle. And Rita's saying, should I send the Green Ranger? Scorpina's saying that she wants to go, and then Goldar says, no, I'm the most powerful villain. It should be me that conducts the final battle. And ultimately, all three are involved in the final battle, but Rita decides that Goldar should be the one that leads the battle for whatever reason. But as I said, it's just that camaraderie that we see with the use of the Sentai footage and the American dub that just seems so compelling. The other thing that made this miniseries so interesting was the American filmed scenes. In other words, the footage that was shot here in the United States that gave that additional layer and depth to the characters. Specifically, we see a lot of this with the dialogue and the exposition of the Power Rangers in the command center in terms of when the Megazord is destroyed. Should they just throw in the towel, or should they should they not resist Rita's victory? Another major sequence that we see throughout the Green with Evil storyline is Jason's battle with both Goldar and Green Ranger in the Dark Dimension, where basically he is forced to confront them both without being morphed in his own original state. And a lot of what Goldar says throughout that is also very compelling to Jason, saying, no one's ever defeated me. You're my reward. Your destruction's my reward for serving Rita faithfully. And even when Green Ranger comes into the actual battle and says, Goldar, you don't need to be here anymore. Rita wants me to destroy him. There's this whole sequence between the Green Ranger and Jason where, towards the end of that, and I just remember seeing this as a child, where Green Ranger's about to stab him with the Sword of Darkness and kill him. And I'm like, wow, this is like really dark stuff. I'm like, even now looking at it, it's like so compelling about how that was shot with Jason David Frank and Austin St. John. And then also there was another sequence that really had the American sequence that was really compelling. And that actually takes place in the last episode where Kimberly confronts Tommy in the rec center and says, I know you're the Green Ranger. And he's basically, not intimidated by her, and he's scaring her with those green eyes and telling her, you've been warned, you're going to be destroyed, blah, blah, blah. So that also I found to be very, very, adding that depth and layer of seriousness to obviously the show that wasn't supposed to be taken so lightly. And then finally, the other thing that I found gave a lot of depth to this is the portrayal of the Green Ranger in the American version, which, as I said, he's portrayed by Jason David Frank, who provided what I refer to as a real verisimilitude of the character being evil once Rita puts him under a spell. I mean, Jason David Frank is able to do this based on his martial arts abilities that he's able to portray throughout the miniseries, the dialogue that he says, and that heinous evil laugh that is just throughout the miniseries. So I'm like, this is really, the way he portrayed the evil Green Ranger was really very menacing. You can almost say this is as menacing a character, almost like James Earl's dialogue of Darth Vader. I mean, because everything he says throughout that show, throughout that miniseries, makes him out to be this real bad guy. And then, of course, when the spell is broken, fans wanted to see him, continue to see him after the miniseries was over. Because the interesting thing about Jason David Frank's character was his character was not supposed to last on the show for a long time. He was supposed to be on Power Rangers and exist until the episode about the Green Candle. And then he was going to get his own show called Cybertron, which actually became VR Troopers. But then Saban got letters from fans saying, we want to see the Green Ranger again, blah, 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 blah. So what ends up happening is Saban brings him back in Return of a Friend, and not only does he stay on as the Green Ranger, but eventually becomes the White Ranger, and then the Red Zeo Ranger, and the Red Turbo Ranger, and the Black Dino Thunder Ranger, and just makes consistent appearances. So, his portrayal of this character of Tommy over the last 30 years has been something that he just acknowledges as being one of the great things in his life. And as he said, he feels very blessed to do that. But a lot of that was based on, his performance in those first 5 episodes where we see him as this completely evil character and then shifts to being a good guy and the leader and so on and so forth. So as I said, the Power Rangers became a great original show, and the reason why I used the Green with Evil storyline is just to provide a synopsis or an example of where that storyline, how that storyline is just beyond, great. It's just a great storyline as an realistic version of this series that began in Japan. We could look and compare and contrast the different versions of the Super Sentai series with the American version of the Green with Evil saga. They're not identical, but I actually feel the American version is far more compelling in terms of the seriousness, acting, taking into account that much of the detail of those shows was spliced by taking the Japanese versions and then redubbing it. So that's an amazing feat that Saban was able to undertake, and that's probably what has allowed the series and franchise to continue over the span of 30 years, whether it was under the helm of Saban Entertainment and broadcasted on Fox Kids, or when it was owned by Disney, or now that it's or when it was viewed through Saban's company and broadcasted on Nickelodeon, or now under the helm of Hasbro. So that's just really what I wanted to analyze today. If you really would like to look at the Power Rangers series in terms of what I'm talking about, it is available on YouTube. There is a page, a channel that does show the first season. You could also watch episodes of it on Netflix. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. If you liked what you saw, please leave a comment and feedback. Also, please make sure you subscribe to Larry's Batcave. We'll be back again next week. Have a great day, and looking forward to seeing everybody again next week. Take care.